Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our webinars. It's now fall, the temperatures are cooling off outside, the leaves are starting to fall, pumpkin patches are opening back up, and we are back with an all new webinar series, Bytes Brews, where we are going to our local coffee shop to enjoy a nice cup of coffee, as well as share a few bites of information or technology tips to help your organization grow. Obviously, I'm Michaela. We also have Marissa, and we have Angela now joining us in our webinar series. So everyone give a warm welcome to Angela.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
today we are going to be focusing on IT strategy and planning. So as we are entering the budgeting season for 2023, it's really important to think about how planning for your IT budget and having a strategic plan in place can help your organization grow and be more productive. So one of the biggest questions we always get is how much should I spend on IT? Is it a percentage of my revenue, or how do you kind of balance that out? And to be honest, there is not a magic number. It really varies by your industry, the size of your company, and the cost of your overall IT support. Typically, small businesses do tend to spend a little bit more in order to stay competitive with larger competitors. You can somewhere around 6 to 7% of your total revenue, but again, not a magic number. It really just depends on a lot of different factors. And obviously, technology is constantly evolving, and so your IT spending is growing. And you have to look at your IT spending as an investment, not just an expense. It obviously brings a lot of benefits to your organization, such as reducing your risk for cyber attacks. It increases productivity and efficiency for all of your team members, and it helps them be more engaged and happy. When you have the best tools for them to use and be able to do their work with, it leads to a bunch of happy employees. And it's really important to remember that the answer is not always more technology. There's always new products coming out, and there's always new fancy shiny things, but it's not always to have the most technology, but it's making sure that you have the right technology in place to best support the needs of your business.
So, if spending is growing over time, can we take a step back and just see, consider what people are spending right now versus last year? Marissa, what's your advice for making sure we're taking everything into account here?
It's a great point. So we know that we're spending something now on technology. And if we kind of chunk it up, we think about IT management and support. We've talked before about this concept of reactive IT management and support and proactive measures. And reactive is having an IT team respond to issues as they come up. Proactive IT is a more predictable, I don't want to say the word proactive again, but it's a measure that we take to put in monitoring, and we look at the environment as a whole so that we can be ahead of issues before they happen. The idea is to keep the cost predictable to support and manage the infrastructure. When you're only responding to issues, then your bills costs fluctuate. In a proactive sense, we're talking about managed service providers and IT partners that provide this approach to IT. They give you a monthly fee, they, like us, work smart, monthly fee for the IT management and support. And typically, the cost for that is going to vary, especially depending on where you live, what market you're in. But typically, those IT services cost between $100 all the way up to $250 or $300 per user. And the idea is that per user expense for proactively maintaining systems to make sure that we're staying ahead of issues, and to account for the support that is needed, because reliable technology is the goal, but it isn't always reliable. And so when things happen, how do you absorb those costs in a way that is budget friendly, predictable, controlled? So that's one aspect of it. The support. What are you spending on that now? The other side is the products and the projects, if you will. These are going to be things like making sure your devices stay up to date. So if your computer is 5 years old and it breaks, you're going to need to buy a new one. So what kinds of things did you spend this year on projects? It's kind of looking backwards, right?
Right. And so after you look backwards and take a look at what you spent last year between, support and projects and products, you have to look ahead to 2023. So having an IT strategy like we're talking about makes it really easy for you to know what's coming and to know kind of what's on the roadmap for you so you can stay prepared. And there's a lot of other benefits to having that sort of mindset already moving forward, such as controlled costs. Marissa mentioned, your costs can fluctuate if you're doing it on a reactive basis, not really planning too far ahead. But if you have a budget and a plan in place and you're already taking into consideration some of the things that you're going to have to pay for, the less surprises you're going to be faced with as you're already putting aside and allocating money to invest in that technology. So it's controlling your cost. It also can align with your business goals and creates clarity over your overall business plan. Obviously, your goals change as time goes on, as well as technology changes, as we all know. So making sure that you are regularly updating your IT strategy and making sure that it's staying in line with your current business goals helps you to make the most out of your technology as it all evolves. And they're really flexible. So obviously, again, your business needs continue to grow. What you needed last year may be completely different than what you need next year or the following year. So regularly checking in and refreshing your IT strategy can help to make sure that the needs of your organization are being met.
And again, there's no magic number for your organization for a certain amount of money to spend on technology, but taking into consideration your business needs, along with all of the other things that we had just mentioned now, you can work with an IT partner, such as ourselves, to create a solid IT strategy that supports your business as it grows. So now we're going to take a look at some of the considerations to think about when it comes to building that strategy.
Let's go. So we just talked about, the importance of having an IT strategy and what that means for your business, how it can help you out, as we move through year by year. And as you're thinking about the future, the move to the cloud is imminent. You cannot think about the future without thinking about the cloud. It supports the growth and expansion of your business. And again, as technology continues to change, the cloud adapts to those technology changes and incorporates it into its system. So the move to the cloud gives you 3 really big benefits to your organization that have really come through over the past few years. So 1, productivity. It's very fast, it's easy to access for everyone on your team, and it allows your organization to handle really large amounts of data in a simplified manner. It also gives you flexibility. So it's super scalable to the needs of your business, and collaboration between team members has never been easier as everyone can have access. So obviously over the last few years, people have likely been working from all different places, and we've been able to really quickly and easily learn to collaborate, no matter where people are working from. It also has a really high sense of security. Cloud technologies have heavily invested in security measures where everything integrates and works together to keep all of your data secure while still making it simple for your team members to access.
Not to mention, cloud apps have made it easier for small businesses to work from anywhere and access technology that once was not possible for them. Think about how Microsoft 365 has revolutionized storing files in the cloud. File servers are a thing of the past for many businesses now. And with apps and data living in the cloud, we're discussing the need for servers with many small businesses. The question we get frequently asked is, do we still even need a server?
Whew.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's a big one, right? Servers historically ran apps and stored files, right? So if all that's in the cloud, do I need a server? And when all of those resources were stored on the server, The server did something else. It controlled access. Who can access data and from what device? The perimeter of your office network was quite literally your physical office. You came into the office, you logged into your company's domain, and your server was able to control all of that. Now, if we get rid of the server, where does it go? So for a lot of small businesses, it makes sense to be able to leverage the cloud for this as well. Look at that. Microsoft has a couple of technologies, Azure Active Directory and Intune, that can work together to provide a very similar experience to the control and security that we got from traditionally a physical server in your office. Azure AD, think of this as the tool that helps you protect your data from the people who access it. We want to make sure people are who they say they are, and we want to give them only access to the things that they need access to. Remember, the cloud opens up your risk of unauthorized access, because we no longer need to be physically present in the office to log into your systems. You now can easily browse to things on the internet. Anyone can browse there, right? So we want to be able to do things like multi-factor authentication, so that we can control additional factors to make sure people are who they say they are. And we want to be able to at bulk, not at bulk, but like as a central point, we want to be able to control all the different permissions that are out there to access your data. The other thing, aside from the people aspect, and I mentioned Intune, this is one of those solutions that is considered to be protecting your data and your systems from the devices that are accessing them. We're at a time where even at the small business level, we have home computers that might be trying to access your Microsoft 365 files. We've got mobile devices in addition to your corporate machines. And so being able to do that can still be replicated using cloud technology like Intune, as opposed to relying on a physical server. So long story short, Angela, to answer your question, a server as we know it may not be required for your environment, but there is technology that we still need to have in place in order to make sure that we are actually in control of what's happening.
We also have a few blogs that we will share that go a little bit more in depth into Azure and Intune. So if you're interested in learning more, feel free to check them out. So, as we were just talking about, the cloud, even though it does, bring a lot of increased security, there also are some more risks that your organization is now open to if you make the shift to the cloud. But if the proper steps are taken, you can protect your organization from these potential threats coming in. So let's shift the conversation a little bit to some general IT security best practices. So tip number 1, you can't rely on legacy infrastructure. So all of those old computers that's sitting in the back, you've had for forever, hardware and applications that are no longer supported by the vendor create a major security risk. The ideal solution in these situations is to upgrade to a more current solution, but cutting it from the internet and from communicating with other parts of your environment will also help reduce your risk until you can fully replace them.
Tip number 2, have a way to confirm that security updates are happening. News travels fast. Whenever a software vulnerability has been identified, you'll get alerts, you'll get notifications. It's a weakness in your organization's security defense system, and attackers like to exploit weaknesses because it's easy. When one is found, a security patch is released to close up the hole and to protect your organization from the vulnerability. So make sure to install the fixes or update your security. And with a growing number of tech tools, this can be difficult to manage without the proper insight. You need to account for all software. You can't ensure that everything is patched and secure if you don't even know what's there to begin with. This includes security tools like firewalls, antivirus, etc., etc. Vulnerability assessments or scans also help identify anything that may be missing so that when it can be assessed, it can then be remediated.
Right. If you're anything like me, you see the little pop-up box that says update your computer now, and you really want to hit remind me later in an hour, whatever the case is. But it is important to do it quickly. And tip number 3.
Do it ASAP.
Yes. Tip number 3, cyber threats continue to evolve. So even though our technology is getting fancier and we're getting all these new security protocols in place, the threats are trying to keep up, and they're getting smarter and more sophisticated as well, which means that your antivirus should then keep up with the cyber threats on top of it. So, and you've definitely heard us say it before. We sound like a broken record, but it's no longer if, but when your business experiences a security incident. I know everyone wants to think, oh, it'll never happen to me, or the chances are slim, but it really, really is always a threat, and every single business, no matter the size, is a risk. And your antivirus is designed to prevent an attack, but what happens when an attack actually gets in? Having a way to very quickly detect an active threat will help you not only reduce the risk, but also quickly investigate and respond to stop the attack from causing harm. The quicker you can get in and find it and take action against it, the less damage your organization is going to suffer in the long run. So managed detection and response, new security tools that are coming out are really designed to monitor your systems, consistently, making sure that threats aren't getting in. And when they do get in, they're quickly identified and responded to by a team of security experts to make sure that your business can save valuable time and money.
I feel like we have this really awesome short video that talks about detecting and responding to attacks.
I think we might.
We might. So that brings us to our last tip of the day, tip 4. Sometimes we don't often talk about this, but we should. And it's been at the forefront of conversations with people returning to the office, but wireless, particularly your guest wireless. Having a guest wireless network is great, but you might be noticing a common theme here. If it's not set up properly, your private network, I like that, my air quotes, can still be at risk. We create a guest wireless network to be able to provide wireless internet access to people without giving them access to the sensitive things in our environment, right? Your wireless equipment itself has a lot to do with the ability to secure your guest wireless. If you're using robust business purposed wireless equipment, you're in the right direction. But surprise, the equipment that it's attached to is also important in making sure that your wireless is in fact secure. And I'm going to go kind of a little bit technical here, so bear with me. But if your wireless, your guest wireless isn't on its own internet connection, which it often isn't, you want to leverage your firewall or your switch to create a virtual segmentation between your private wireless network and your guest wireless network. It's like putting up walls in between each of those networks, virtual walls, if you will, so that the traffic cannot cross over from one to the other. And if you're in an industry that deals with sensitive data like healthcare or a lot, like credit card information. This is going to be an important step to take so that you don't inadvertently give the bad guys a way to get to the stuff you don't want them to get to.
To the important stuff.
Right.
All right, so let's do a quick recap of everything we've talked about so far. So we've talked about why it's important to have an IT strategy and about how everyone is shifting to the cloud now. Should you have a server or not? And a few cybersecurity best practices to keep in mind as all this transitioning is going on. Now it's time for the fail-safe. When all else fails, you have backups. Quite possibly Marissa's favorite thing to talk about. But it should be a really big consideration for your IT strategy and budget. Our team talks about backups daily, helping our clients to balance both the cost of their backups with the cost of the risk should you not have the proper backup in place. So making sure that all of your data is backed up no matter where it's stored. So all your cloud infrastructure and apps, as well as your physical servers, so that way you make sure that you can recover what you need in the amount of time that you need to recover it to keep your business going.
So when it comes to server backups, if it's in the office, generally it's best that you have backed up data stored in the office. Having it local allows for the fastest access to the data, and it also allows for a quicker recovery. You'll want to send the data to the cloud for redundancy if something happens to the physical backup. It's a plus if you can restore it to the cloud as well for a disaster recovery scenario. God forbid. Remember that low-cost solutions often miss a key component of backups: testing. You may think everything you need is being backed up, but it's not. But until it's put to the test, you can't be sure. And you don't want to wait until a disaster occurs to put it to the test. Having a robust backup solution already in place helps make sure that everything is working properly.
Absolutely. And Angela, you talked about server backups. Well, I want to take it to the PC level. Computers. Accidents happen. Users make errors. Data goes away. And whatever the case it may be. But don't let your computer be the hill your files die on. And I say that because we have so much technology to be able to adequately store our files and have them backed up. If you're using Microsoft 365, then your files are stored in the cloud. They shouldn't be saved on your computer. If you have a server and it acts as your file server, your files should be stored there, so they're backed up by the server. So, whereas we used to say, back up your computer, now it is, maybe there's an opportunity for education so that your team is storing the data in the right place so that you're not having to back up the computer as well, right? So the general story we're telling you here is that you need to have tools in place that you can rely on in times of fault, right? A file disappears, your hardware crashes, a flood comes through and takes out the office, the physical server, and its local backup. Having the knowledge of and clarity of where your data is and that it's being backed up appropriately and those backups are tested so that you can easily recover all of the pieces will help you worry less and stay productive, especially when it matters. Nobody wants to be worried in a time of crisis. That's when you want to be able to have the stability and solidification, the good backups, reliable, good backups.
You need backups. Backups are good. Famous lines of Marissa.
Backups are
Good
good.
backups, strong backups.
Oh, well, on that note, that is all we have for today's webinar. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you got some bites of information along with some brews in the process. If you have any suggestions or anything that you would like us to talk about in future webinars, please feel free to contact us. We love hearing what you really want us to talk about, so that way we can help you learn about technology and make the most out of your technology to support your business. So, with all of that being said, we will see you next time.
See you later.
See ya. Thanks for having me.